Some wounds don't bleed. They echo, quietly, in the spaces where trust once lived. You don't always notice the exact moment your life changes. Sometimes it's gentle, a slow shift in the light through your window, a hand that lingers just a bit longer on your shoulder, a voice that suddenly feels like the only safe place you have. For me, it began on a day so ordinary I can hardly remember it, the kind of afternoon where nothing much happens, and that's the miracle. I was 8. My real mother had left, quietly, the way some people slip out of a crowded room when no one is looking. My father, lost in a grief he never spoke about, dropped me off with his distant cousin, promising it would only be for a while. That was the first time I met her, Maya. Her arms were open before I stepped out of the car, and her smile felt warm in a way that scared me because I was already afraid of losing anything good. She knelt to my level, brushed my hair out of my eyes, and called me sweetheart, like she'd known me forever. Her house smelled like fresh bread and old books, and the walls were lined with pictures, most of them children, some happy, some not. She said, "You're safe here, darling," and for a moment, I believed her. I was too tired not to. Those first weeks, she did everything right. She packed my lunches with extra fruit, braided my hair before school, and waited on the porch every afternoon so I'd see her waving before I reached the driveway. She told me stories at bedtime, let me choose my own pajamas, and never made me talk about my mother unless I wanted to. I didn't want to, not then. I wanted to pretend Maya had always been there, that I'd always belonged to someone who wanted me. Children are fast to trust if you give them a little consistency. Maya gave me more than that. She gave me routines, small promises that became the foundation of my days. Pancakes every Sunday. Quiet reading time after dinner. If I had a nightmare, she would sit beside my bed, stroking my hair until I fell back asleep. Sometimes, I'd wake in the middle of the night and see the light from her room, hear the quiet murmur of her voice on the phone. I never listened to the words. I just knew she was awake, keeping watch, keeping me. I learned her patterns. She liked things just so, the curtains pulled back every morning, shoes lined up by the door, homework finished before dinner. If I forgot, she reminded me gently. When I got it right, she smiled like I'd done something extraordinary. I was careful not to disappoint her. I made my bed with tight corners, folded my sweaters, memorized the way she liked her tea. It felt good to be wanted, to be her girl. Sometimes, I even forgot the woman who had given birth to me. I told myself I'd been given a second chance, a mother who chose me. She introduced me to her friends as her daughter, and I felt a secret pride every time she said it. I wanted to deserve it. She bought me new clothes, let me pick out the color of my room, taught me to bake cookies and tie my shoes the right way. She let me sit in her lap while she read her novels, the warmth of her body comforting against my back. Every kindness was a small thread, pulling me deeper into her world. School was easy for me. I liked rules, clear expectations. Maya came to every parent-teacher meeting. She clapped the loudest at my spelling bee, sent me off with good luck notes tucked into my lunchbox. Sometimes, other mothers would look at her with a kind of envy, ask her how she managed to raise such a polite, well-adjusted child. She'd laugh and say, "It's all about love." I believed her. I wanted to believe her. When I was lonely or afraid, she was always there. If I got sick, she'd stay up all night wiping my forehead, holding my hand, whispering comfort. If I struggled with my homework, she'd sit beside me, patient and encouraging. She never raised her voice, never threatened. She had a way of making me feel special, important, the center of her quiet world. Sometimes, though, there were moments I didn't understand. If I asked too many questions about my real mother, her face would harden just a little, and she'd change the subject. When my father called, and he did, less and less as time went on, she would answer with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I told myself it didn't matter. I had Maya now. I didn't need anyone else. Years passed, and I grew into her routines. She taught me to be careful, to watch what I said, to be grateful for what I had. She praised me when I succeeded, comforted me when I failed. She never asked for anything in return, at least not at first. I tried to be perfect for her. I tried to become everything she wanted, a quiet, obedient daughter who never caused trouble. Looking back, I see now how easy it was to love her. How much I wanted her to love me back. Sometimes, I'd catch her watching me with a strange intensity, as if she was searching for something in my face. I never knew what it was. I only knew that when she smiled, I felt safe, and when she frowned, I felt like the world might end. By the time I was 12, my father's visits had stopped completely. Maya said he was busy, that he had a new life, that he trusted her to take care of me. I nodded and pretended I didn't care. In truth, I barely remembered the sound of his voice. Maya was my world now. Her rules, her house, her love. She started calling me by my mother's name sometimes, especially when she was tired or angry. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But it kept happening. I tried to correct her, gently, but she'd laugh it off, tell me not to be silly. I learned not to argue. It didn't matter who I was, as long as I made her happy. There were small things that changed. She grew stricter about my friends, wanting to know where I was at all times. She wanted me home after school, no exceptions. If I asked to go to a sleepover, she'd say, "We don't need anyone else, do we?" I'd nod, even if I didn't agree. I didn't want to disappoint her. Still, she was generous. She bought me books, taught me to knit, showed me how to plant a garden. I had everything I needed. My teachers said I was lucky to have her. The neighbors admired her devotion. I believed it, too. Most days, I felt loved. The days I didn't, I told myself I was just ungrateful. One summer, when I was 13, everything started to unravel. It was subtle, a tension in the air, a sharpness in her words that hadn't been there before. She grew impatient, easily frustrated. If I made a mistake, she'd sigh heavily, sometimes slam a door, but she never shouted. That made it worse. The silence was heavier than any punishment. She began to talk about all the things she'd done for me, all the sacrifices she'd made. She'd list them quietly at night, after the lights were out, her voice soft but relentless. "If it weren't for me, where would you be?" she'd say. "No one else wanted you. Remember that." I nodded in the dark, pressing my face into the pillow, willing myself not to cry. My birthday that year was quiet. She made my favorite cake, but there were no friends, no gifts from my father. She said it was better this way, that family was all we needed. I blew out the candles and made a wish I couldn't put into words. I wanted her to be happy. I wanted things to go back to the way they were. As the months passed, her mood changed more often. She'd swing from loving and affectionate to distant and cold. Some nights, she wouldn't come to say goodnight. Other nights, she'd sit beside my bed and stroke my hair, tears running down her face for reasons she never explained. I tried to comfort her, but she always pulled away. I became careful with my words, choosing silence over questions. I tiptoed through the house, afraid to upset the delicate balance we'd created. School became my sanctuary. I stayed late, joined clubs, made friends I knew I couldn't invite home. I carried guilt for that. She'd done so much for me, and here I was, looking for comfort somewhere else. The final shift happened on a night that seemed no different from any other. She was in her chair, reading, and I was finishing my homework at the kitchen table. I spilled some water on the page, and before I could clean it up, she was standing over me, her face unreadable. She didn't shout. She just looked at me, disappointed. "After everything I've done for you," she said, "you still can't do something as simple as keep things neat." Her words stung more than any slap. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet sound of her moving through the house. I felt something crack inside me, a small, silent fracture. I didn't know it yet, but everything was about to change. There's a particular ache that comes when you realize the person who held you safest can also be the one who breaks you open. I carried that ache quietly, at first, too confused to name it, too loyal to let it show. For weeks after that night, Maya's mood hovered like a shifting cloud. Some mornings she'd greet me with a cheerful, practiced warmth, her arms outstretched, pancakes on the table. Other mornings, she'd move around me as if I wasn't there at all. Each day, I measured myself against her expression, hoping for a signal that I was still loved, still wanted. But the ground kept shifting, and I learned to watch every step. When you're a child, love is your weather. You dress for it. You adjust your expectations. You do whatever it takes not to be caught in the storm. I made myself small and helpful. I polished my manners, did my chores before being asked, brought her flowers from the schoolyard, and laughed at her jokes even when they hurt. Sometimes, it felt like I was competing with a shadow, the memory of who I used to be, or maybe the memory of her own lost childhood. I never knew if I was winning. The house, once a safe cocoon, grew quieter. We talked less, moved less, as if the air itself had thickened. Maya began complaining of headaches. She'd retreat to her room for hours, leaving me to heat my own dinner and finish my homework alone. When she finally emerged, her eyes were tired, but her voice was sharp. "You could have checked on me," she'd say, "if you really cared." I'd apologize, even though I wasn't sure what I'd done wrong. I became afraid of my own needs, afraid that asking for anything would push her further away. My teachers noticed the change. They asked gentle questions about home, but I smiled and said I was just tired, maybe coming down with something. I didn't want to betray Maya. She'd done so much for me. I owed her everything, didn't I? That was the story I told myself, again and again, like a prayer. She'd saved me. I had to be worth saving. As winter settled in, the walls seemed to close tighter. Maya's rules became more rigid. No calls with friends after dinner. No visits to their houses, not even for homework. She said it was for my own good. Too much distraction, too many bad influences. "You're better off alone with me," she said. "Other people don't understand us." I nodded, not because I agreed, but because disagreeing seemed dangerous. My world shrank to the space between her moods and my own careful silence. One night, as I lay awake listening to the sound of rain against my window, I heard her crying. The sound was small and muffled, the kind of crying you do when you don't want to be heard. I crept down the hallway, paused outside her door. Through the thin wood, I heard her whispering names, some familiar, some I didn't recognize. I wanted to go in, to comfort her the way she used to. Comfort me. But I stood frozen, my hand hovering just above the doorknob, afraid of what I might find on the other side. The next morning, she was distant, her eyes red and her smile brittle. "You're getting older," she said suddenly, watching me over her coffee. "I hope you remember who's been here for you. I hope you remember who gave you everything." I nodded, but her words settled in my stomach like stones. Spring came late that year. The garden that had once been our shared project now lay untended, weeds curling through the cracks in the path. I offered to help, but Maya just shook her head, saying she didn't have the energy. She spent more time on the phone with people I never met, her voice rising and falling behind closed doors. When I asked about my father, she grew cold. "He's not your family anymore," she said. "You're mine now. That's all that matters." I tried to reach for her in small ways, offering her tea, writing her notes, folding her laundry just the way she liked. But every gesture seemed to vanish before it reached her. She was elsewhere, lost in thoughts she never shared. I started keeping a journal, scribbling secret wishes between math homework and book reports. I wished for laughter. I wished for a time when I didn't feel so heavy. One afternoon, I came home to find Maya waiting in the living room, a strange look on her face. She told me to sit. Her tone was gentle, but her hands shook as she spoke. "You're not a little girl anymore," she began. "You have to understand that I made sacrifices for you. I gave up everything. Sometimes I wonder if you're grateful." I tried to answer, but she pressed on, her words tumbling out in a rush. "You owe me. Don't ever forget that. Everything you have, everything you are, is because of me." Her words burned. For the first time, I felt something harden inside me, a sliver of anger, a small refusal to be owned. But I kept my face blank, afraid of what she might do if she saw defiance. She looked at me, searching for a response, but I had nothing left to give. From that day on, she watched me closely, like a guard counting keys. She checked my backpack after school, read my diary when I wasn't home, monitored my phone calls. When she found a letter from a friend, she tore it up in front of me, her expression calm. "You don't need anyone else," she said. "I'm all you need." I stopped writing letters. I stopped bringing friends home. My world became a narrow corridor between school and her watchful gaze. I began to understand that her love came with a cost I paid every time I chose silence over honesty, every time I gave up a piece of myself to keep her happy. One night, after another silent dinner, I asked her about my mother. She set her fork down, her eyes cold. "Why do you always ask about people who left you?" she said. "I'm here. I stayed. Isn't that enough?" I apologized, but the question lingered between us, heavy and dangerous. That summer, Maya lost her job. The house grew tense with the worry she wouldn't speak out loud. Bills piled up on the kitchen table. She snapped at me for leaving lights on, for taking too long in the shower, for eating too much bread. I tried to make myself smaller, more invisible, hoping she would be less angry if I just needed less. Sometimes I imagined running away, but I didn't know where I would go. I had no other family, no one I trusted enough to tell. Maya made sure of that. She'd isolated me so quietly that I didn't notice until I was truly alone. I told myself I was ungrateful, that other kids had it worse. I repeated her words in my head, "You owe me. You owe me everything." The garden became my refuge. I'd sit among the weeds and overgrown roses, pressing my palms into the earth, letting the silence wash over me. Sometimes I cried. Sometimes I just stared at the sky and wished to be anywhere else. But always, I went back inside when she called. Always, I did what she asked. The day things truly changed was the day she took my violin. Music had always been my escape, the one place I felt light, whole, unburdened. I practiced in my room after school, pouring my longing and hope into every note. Maya said she loved hearing me play, that it made the house feel alive. But that summer, when the bills were due and the pantry was empty, she sold my violin to a neighbor without telling me. When I found the case missing, I searched the whole house before asking her. She didn't look up from her tea. "We needed the money," she said, her voice flat. "You'll survive. Not everything is about you." I stood there, stunned, my hands shaking. I wanted to scream, but all I managed was a whisper, "It was mine." She looked at me, her face unreadable. "Nothing in this house is yours. Remember that." I went to my room and wept quietly, pressing my fists into my pillow so she wouldn't hear. The loss of my violin was the first time I truly understood what it meant to have something taken, not by fate or accident, but by someone who claimed to love you. That night, I stared at the ceiling until dawn, feeling something inside me shift and settle into cold resolve. After that, she grew bolder. She sold my books, my art supplies, even a necklace my real mother had given me. Each time, she justified it with a new reason: money, necessity, the reminder that things don't matter. But they mattered to me. They were pieces of myself, and she took them without apology. School became my only escape. I threw myself into studying, stayed late whenever I could, volunteered for every activity. My teachers praised my dedication, but none of them saw the shadows I carried home each day. I learned to hide my pain behind a bright, careful smile. Maya seemed to sense my withdrawal. She'd alternate between pleading for my affection and accusing me of ingratitude. She'd remind me of the roof over my head, the food on my plate, the clothes on my back, all things I was supposed to be grateful for, even as she chipped away at everything that made me feel like myself. One afternoon, as I walked home from school, I saw a "for sale" sign in front of our house. Panic fluttered in my chest. When I asked Maya about it, she just shrugged. "We're leaving," she said. "Too many memories here. Time to start over." I felt the ground shift beneath me, old fears bubbling up. Where would we go? What would she take from me next? I wanted to fight, to demand answers, but I was too tired. Too worn down by years of trying to hold on to what little I had left. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized I had no more tears left. Only a numb determination to survive whatever came next. Sometimes you only understand the shape of your prison once you try to walk beyond it. The "for sale" sign wasn't just about the house. It was a signal that everything familiar was about to disappear, and this time, I wasn't sure I would survive the loss. For weeks, Maya moved through rooms with measured calm, packing boxes with the same hands that once braided my hair and tucked me in at night. She didn't ask for help. She simply took what she wanted, discarding what she didn't. Pieces of furniture, old toys, a school trophy I'd won in 4th grade. With every box sealed, my world grew smaller. We moved to a cramped apartment on the other side of town, away from everyone I knew. The walls were thin, the neighbors were strangers. I was 16 by then, old enough to understand that safety was not guaranteed, that love could curdle into something colder. Maya didn't look back as we drove away from the house. She never mentioned the garden, my friends, or the violin she'd sold. For her, the past was a thing to be shed, left behind with everything else that had become inconvenient. The new apartment felt like a temporary shelter, a place where I was only allowed to exist on her terms. There were more rules now, and they changed without warning. She monitored my phone calls, questioned every text, and insisted on knowing where I was at all times. When I asked if I could visit my old school or see an old friend, she snapped, "Why are you so eager to leave me? After all I've given you, this is how you thank me." It was then that I realized the greatest thing Maya took from me wasn't an object, but my sense of belonging. She'd cut me off from everyone, family, friends, even memories, until I wasn't sure I belonged anywhere at all. College became my distant hope, a faraway promise I clung to on sleepless nights. I studied in secret, hiding textbooks under my bed, saving every spare coin from lunch money, applying for scholarships Maya didn't know about. I didn't dare tell her about my plans. I knew what she would say, that I was ungrateful, that I owed her more years, more loyalty, more silence. But something inside me, battered but alive, told me I had to try. Senior year, the world outside began to call louder. My teachers encouraged me to apply for universities. My guidance counselor offered quiet support, never asking too many questions but always letting me know her door was open. I wanted to trust her, but old habits die hard. I kept my secrets close, afraid of what Maya would do if she discovered my dreams. Then, one evening, everything came crashing down. I came home late from a study session, too late for Maya's rules. She was waiting, her face set in stone. She demanded to know where I'd been, who I'd seen, why I didn't think about her feelings. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. Her words cut deep. "You're just like your mother, selfish, ready to run the moment things get hard." I stood there, stunned. She'd never spoken about my mother like that before. For a moment, all the years of longing and hurt boiled up in my chest. I wanted to scream that I wasn't running, that I was only trying to find myself in the wreckage she'd made. But the words died on my tongue. Instead, I stared at her, seeing for the first time not a protector or a savior, but a woman drowning in her own emptiness, someone who took everything because she was terrified of having nothing. The next day, I found my acceptance letter hidden beneath a pile of bills on the kitchen table. It had been opened, the envelope ripped. Maya looked at me across the room, her eyes cold. "So you were going to leave without even telling me," she said. There was no point denying it. I nodded, my heart pounding. She launched into a quiet, relentless tirade about everything she'd sacrificed, how I owed her my life, how leaving her would destroy her. I listened in silence, the words no longer able to reach the parts of me they once controlled. In that moment, something fundamental broke, a cord that had bound me to her since childhood, built from gratitude and guilt. I left the room, packed my things, and walked out the door. There was no dramatic goodbye, no final confrontation. Just a quiet, steady determination to step into the unknown. I didn't take much, just a few clothes, my journal, and the memory of every small thing Maya had once given me before she learned how to take. I stayed with a friend's family for the summer, grateful for their kindness, for the simple trust of being allowed to eat at their table without paying in apologies. It wasn't easy. I missed Maya sometimes, her voice, her hands, the way she used to look at me when I made her proud. But I knew that missing her didn't mean I had to go back. College was freedom and fear in equal measure. I struggled at first, simple things like choosing what to eat, trusting that no one would take my things, believing I deserved a place among people who wanted nothing from me but friendship. For a long time, I expected the world to close in, to demand payment for every good thing. But slowly, I learned to let myself breathe. Therapy helped. Talking out loud about Maya, the love, the loss, the slow erosion, helped me see that what I'd survived wasn't my fault. I learned that it's possible to grieve for someone who is still alive, to mourn the childhood you never got to keep. I forgave her, quietly, in my own heart. I let go of the hope that she would change or apologize or finally see me for who I was. Now, when people ask about my family, I tell them I was raised by a woman who taught me how to survive, who gave me both kindness and pain, and forced me to find my own way. I don't hate her. I just know I can never go back. Some days, I think about the girl I used to be, the one who thought love meant sacrifice, who would have given anything to be someone's daughter. I wish I could tell her that love isn't measured by what you lose, but by what you are allowed to keep. That being chosen by someone is not the same as being safe. That it's okay to walk away from someone who says you owe them your happiness. I still dream about Maya sometimes. In the dreams, she's calling me home, her voice soft and sad. I wake up with tears on my face, but the ache is quieter now, a gentle echo instead of a wound. I have my own place, my own life, my own rules. I play music again, even if it's only in small ways, humming while I work, tapping a rhythm on the windowsill. Sometimes, I imagine the sound of a violin, sweet and bright, filling a room that belongs to me alone. This is how you rebuild, one small piece at a time. You make new memories, plant new gardens, trust yourself to choose what to keep and what to let go. You forgive the people who hurt you, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. You remember that you are not what was taken from you. You are everything that remains. And in the quiet of a life you've chosen for yourself, you discover something you never expected, the simple, steady joy of being free.